Hi, in today's video, we are going to discuss about the business analyst role in context to the Mulesoft application. As we all know, business analysis is all about understanding the requirements of any customer. Providing solutions for that is what something which being a business analyst, one must be good with. In context to the role of a business analyst, if you see, business analyst majorly focuses on the business requirements where they try to understand about the requirements from the stakeholder, because whatever in the first case here you can see, right? So being a business analyst, we try to understand about the stakeholder requirements, what was the business situation, all that stuff. So whatever the business situation and the scenario they have identified so far, that information will be gathered by the business analyst here. And what kind of solution to be provided with the consent of technical team is what something which being a BA, we do it. Because technical business analyst, technical people will give us about the possibility or the feasibility from the technical perspective, to what extent it can be developed, etc. All that, right? So this is where generally technical teams do. So once the technical teams have given us the feasibility in context to the implementation technically for any application to develop, so architects will develop some architecture for the project. This is where we call it as project architecture, like solution architecture will be given by the technical team by understanding some non-functional requirements, all that. From there, applications will be developed. Subsequently, this will be delivered to the stakeholders. So being a BA, we act as a liaison between business and technical communities is what something which normally we do. Now, here let us understand, being a BA, what kind of skill set do we need to acquire? The first thing about communication skills, being a business analyst, we must be good at communication skills, all that. Like having some verbal and written communication skills are essentially required. Because to communicate requirements and all, we need to have some good written communication skills to prepare some documents, etc. All these. So once it was done, the next was knowing about requirement analysis, because when we interact with stakeholders, we try to understand the kind of requirements which customers were expecting, all that, right? So this is where generally stakeholder identification, by understanding the stakeholder analysis, by understanding the requirements like business requirements, stakeholder requirements, transitional solution requirements, regulatory, all that. Followed by this requirement analysis, the next is functional skill set. This is where we need to understand about the functional perspective. This is majorly to do with the domain, right? So whatever the domain are we working, either it can be banking, finance, insurance, capital markets, retail, healthcare, etc. Right? So understanding about the functional process and the domain perspective of any organization is required. Last but not least, technical skills. This is where I am about to explain you about from the business analyst from the Mulesoft perspective, because normally business analyst roles can be divided into two different kind of roles. One is about functional BA roles and second is a technical BA role. Functional BA having knowledge over the functionalities of the application, domain skills and all everything. This is what something functional BAs are. Whereas when it comes to the technical BA, understanding about the application architecture structure, at the same time knowing about how the APIs works and all, right? So this is all something which being a business analyst is what something which we have to be good with, right? So this is where you can see, right? So whatever the experiences in context to the APIs, right? So this sort of understanding is what something which being a business analyst, we have to be good with. This is where generally we need to understand, right? So what are all the experiences to have, right? Knowing about the APIs, what are the layers, all that. So some sort of technical knowledge is required. So because Mulesoft is something which is an integrated platform where it will be used for integration purposes, all that, wherein we are needed to integrate this with different applications. Either it can be a customer related applications or an ERP application, something like SAP S4 HANA or something like, or else any CRM application like Salesforce, etc. On that, right? So the integration is what something which normally we do in context to the Mulesoft is concerned. So if we are a business analyst, it's not only about understanding the requirements from the customer. It's not only understanding the requirement analysis, knowing about the functional process. Being a business analyst, we must be good in understanding about the Mulesoft application from the integration perspective. In this regard, normally, if we being a business analyst, apart from the knowledge areas of experience as a BA, when it comes to the Mulesoft application itself is concerned, we have to be understood and we have to be focused more on the integration part. This is where generally we call it as Mulesoft integration or integrations, I can say, right? So Mulesoft integration or integrations experience is what something we have to know it, because when there is any kind of product development are we going to do any software product development and all that, so wherein we need to have a detailed understanding about Mulesoft integration, because Mulesoft can be integrated with multiple external applications which we must be knowing with. At the same time, it's not only about the integration perspective, all that, it's also to understand if from the context of the Mulesoft from the vendor level as well as the client level as well, because whatever the kind of integrations are we going to do, right? So how this APIs and all everything are connected with, right? So connectivity of APIs, microservices and all that. So knowledge over API and microservices, right? So all these things are required, because let me explain you the concept of microservices. From the architectural point of view, if you understand microservices, earlier, whatever the application architecture are we do, everything is in monolithic architecture. Monolithic architecture means whatever the components are we developing for any of the application were tightly coupled. So the disadvantage in tightly coupled is that if there is any component we want to make any kind of changes in between, it is really difficult, because you have to adjust the whole application. You need to rework on the whole application, which will be taken a lot of time for people to understand. At the same time, they have to work on the testing right from the level 1 to 0, right? So 1 to 100, right? So the complete testing process has to be carried every time. So when there are any changes to be made, subsequently we have to make some changes out of it. That's how generally the situation when it comes to the uh, monolithic architecture is concerned. But when it comes to the microservices, what we do, whatever the components are we going to develop, for every component, there is an exclusive microservices will be created by us. So whatever the changes you want to make for a particular component, you can make it for particular component, so that the existing application which is running and using by the user won't be disturbed at all. So whatever the changes and all, because microservices is loosely coupled, it's not tightly coupled, so that if you want to make any kind of changes for a particular component and all, or for a particular microservices, we can focus only on that, so that the rest of the application won't be disturbed for whatsoever reason. This is what generally the concept called microservices, which normally one should understand. So understanding our microservices, at the same time understanding about API, because it is nothing but to have a communication between two different applications, we create some APIs and all. Either it can be HTTP API or a RESTful API or SOAP API, right? So different APIs are something which normally we create. This is where something which we call it as APIs and all everything is what something we have to be known with. It's not only about the microservices, so that we require to have a knowledge over web services also. Because web services is a concept. I'll tell you one thing. Let's say we are developing an e-commerce application, say an online shopping kind of. For example, while you are developing an e-commerce application, you required some web application which can be compatible for laptops and desktops. You may be required to develop an application app which is compatible for mobiles as well. At the same time, even for tabs. Let's say for the same application you are developing, it's a e-commerce application as an example if you have taken. So we are developing three different applications. Application is same, but the compatibility issues we required to develop three different applications. So when you are developing three different applications, whatever the business logic which has to be implemented for the application. So for every application, we have to write the same business logic thrice, twice as well as thrice, right? Depends on the number of applications we are developing. This is really difficult for the technical team because complexity will be more, effort will be more, cost will be more. Unnecessarily, they are doing the same business logic they are writing n number of times. This is something which is a tedious process and as well as complex process for any technical team to perform. This is where generally web services comes into picture. In this web services, the concept of web services, the advantage is that whatever the web service we create, an advantage is that this can be used by the development team when there is an application they are using and all. To implement that business logic, this web services can be used so that they don't require to create a business logic as separate to write with. This is what generally the concept called web services comes into picture. So having a knowledge over API, microservices, web services, this sort of understanding is also required for any Mulesoft business analyst roles. This is something which we have to be good with. At the same time, we need to have a knowledge over agile environment or agile model, agile methodology, etc. Because now and then when we are developing the applications, most of the applications are moving towards agile way of approach. Means you are developing application, everything from the agile perspective. That's how the situation was changing. So when and wherever it is needed, you can make as many changes as you want. That's where the concept called agile. When it comes to the agile implementation, it can be Scrum, it can be XP, it can be Kanban, it can be of anything. So understanding over about agile manifesto principles, values, at the same time to have a knowledge over any one of the framework or a process, either it can be Scrum or it can be Kanban. So that sort of knowledge and as well as requirement is also something essentially important whenever a person working for business analyst, especially in the context of Mulesoft, etc., all that. So these are the one things which being a business analyst, apart from the regular skill set of a BA, because understanding the requirements, providing solutions, right? So preparing some documentations like BRDs, or SRS, etc. Writing some epics and user stories, right? So at the same time, preparing some use cases, UML diagrams. These are all something which is common for any BA. So that is required. So apart from that, if you want to work as a business analyst in context to the Mulesoft, as it is an integrated platform, having a knowledge over Mulesoft integration and how the Mulesoft integration will be taken place. At the same time, one of the important element which I was specified, right? So which I was specified you about the process of API, because application programming interfaces and all that. This sort of knowledge is something essentially required. So whenever we are working on the applications and all, right? So we need to have a knowledge over APIs, right? So either it can be a experienced API integration, it can be an integration layer when you are integrating with other applications like SAP or Salesforce integrations, or else it can be of system API layers. What are the different system API layers we have? So this sort of understanding in context to the Mulesoft integration is what something being a BA, technically speaking. Technically speaking is what something which being a business analyst, apart from the regular knowledge areas and skill sets, this is what something which we have to be good with. So this is all about this video. So, and this is the video which is majorly useful for the people who wants to transform their career into the field of business analyst from any of the side, either a person working for Mulesoft and want to switch over their career into BA or something like that. Or a person who is working as a business analyst, vice versa, want to learn about Mulesoft and entering into the career of Mulesoft, all that. At the same time, of course, this is maybe useful for any other profiles as well. So this video is majorly intended to give a high level understanding over the roles and responsibilities of a BA, what we do, and in context to the Mulesoft is all about. So if you have any questions, if you have any queries, if you have any training as well as coaching needs in regard to business analyst Mulesoft, please reach out to the contact details, which will be posted in below to this video. Thank you.